Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of Heritage Oakville to order. We are live here in the council chamber, and we're also online. We're being live streamed. And if anyone watching from home wants to follow along with the work that we're doing today, they can access the agenda by going to oakville.ca, and under Town Hall Agendas and Meetings, they will find the agenda for today's meeting. And they will also find the information there as to how to delegate electronically. If people wish to attend the meeting electronically, they must let the Clerk's Department know by noon on the business day prior to the meeting. If people appear in person, they may, if they wish, delegate at the appropriate time without necessarily having given notice, although it's always nice to do that because then we know what's happening. We have 2 discussion items today, 1 confidential item and 3 information items. I'll just say about the confidential item, it's all been distributed. And if when we get to it, if everybody's happy that they've read everything and there's nothing more to be done other than approve it, then we can do that. If anybody wants to open up any discussion about that, then we would have to go in camera. And there's an appropriate process for doing that, which we will initiate at the time if anybody wants to do that. So do we have any regrets, Madam Secretary?
We do have regrets from Jerry Tino. And as far as I don't see Councillor McNeese for now, but he might be appear later on.
Okay, and I see we have our other councillor, and we have Jason remotely. So again, as we go through the meeting, you know, raise your, and we've got Sue with us remotely too. Just raise your hand, the little yellow hand if you can. I'll do my best to acknowledge that. Otherwise, sort of bang some pots and pans together, and then perhaps I'll hear you. Okay. Now, as everyone knows, this is an advisory committee, and any recommendations or advice that we want to give to Council will be dealt with by Council's Planning and Development Council meeting at its meeting on October the 15th at 6:30 p.m. And again, if anybody wishes to delegate for that meeting, you should let the clerk know by noon on the business day prior to the meeting. Okay, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest with respect to any item on the agenda today? No? Good, thank you. So the next item is the confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. These minutes were circulated electronically as an addendum to today's agenda. Does anyone have any comments to make on the minutes? Would somebody, George, thank you. George has moved that the minutes be adopted as circulated. Any further discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed. So our next business item now, we're into discussion items, and that's item 4.1, which is a heritage permit for 93 2nd Street, and Sue is going to walk us through that remotely. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just wait for the presentation to be pulled up and I'll take you through it. Apologies for not being there in person. I'm a little bit under the weather today, but I can definitely take you through this application and go from there. So we have an application for a heritage permit for the residents at 93 2nd Street. The property is considered a contributing historic property within the 1st and 2nd Street Heritage Conservation District. Next slide, please. A lot of you are probably familiar with this because it does actually have a fairly prominent corner lot at the corner of 2nd Street and Lakeshore Road. However, I guess over the past few years, there has been a lot of kind of wild garden growth going on there, and the house is shielded a little bit from the street with some wild twig arbors and things like that. And so the house needs a bit of love and attention, and I'm very pleased to bring you a heritage permit application today to do just that. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to take you through a couple of photos that show the existing condition and then the historic condition of the building. So the upper photo is looking from the corner of Lakeshore Road, looking kind of south. So you can see again those arbors that are shielding parts of the main house from the street. You can also see at the side there the one-story carport. And then at the back, the bottom photo rather is a photo towards the rear of the property, which is a little difficult to photograph as it's fairly close to the property line back in that corner, but that is the back of a one-story addition that attaches to the carport, and then the main house, of course, which is 2 stories. Next slide, please. These are side elevations of the house. Again, this is the west elevation in the upper photograph that faces onto 2nd Street. The main entrance to the house is actually on this elevation at the moment, but it's very difficult to see where it is. It's tucked in past the arbors. The house has been added on to in many phases over the years, and so one of the things that this application will be doing is to try to restore a bit of order and cohesiveness to the overall design of the house. And then again, in the lower photo, you can see the other side of the residence. I would note that all windows have been replaced. There are no historic window sash, although some of the openings certainly may be historic. But windows are either aluminum or vinyl throughout the entire building. Next slide, please. This is an interesting series of photographs provided by ATA. We're very grateful to see them because we can actually see the house in its very original construction in the lower right image. That was before the Tudor revival elements were added onto the house. You can see it was actually a rather unadorned vernacular farmhouse. And then as the years went on, there were a number of additions made to the house, filling in of porches, adding a 2nd story addition over top of previous porches, and the addition of the stucco cladding and the false half timbering that give the house its Tudor revival style appearance. And so while the Tudor revival details are not original to the house, they are certainly very historic. And I would probably argue that they have been the visual identity of the house longer than the original vernacular unadorned construction was. Next slide, please. And so the application before you has 2 components. We look at some alterations to the existing residence, and then we're looking at several additions to the existing residence. So as I noted, none of the windows are historic, and so the applicant is looking to replace them all with wood simulated divided light casement windows. Normally, we do prefer sash windows in historic buildings, but casements are actually a more appropriate window style for the Tudor revival style, and staff have no objections to that. We will likely have to replace most of the stucco cladding due to existing damage on all elevations. As well, of course, you always are faced with some challenges when you're adding on to buildings and trying to match stucco applications. As the stucco itself is in relatively poor shape, it is likely that the entire structure will need recladding with the traditional 3-coat application, so there will be no EIFS used on the house. In addition, there will be some repairs and some slight modifications to the false half timbering patterns, especially on the upper story, in order to link them in with the new additions to kind of give it an overall cohesive appearance. And the enclosure that is built over the front entrance on Lakeshore Road, so that you can't actually see the entrance there, is going to be removed so that we can actually have a new primary entrance on Lakeshore Road East, creating, I'd say, a more focal point from the property than what we currently have. Next slide, please. There are three main additions to go over. So first of all, the existing carport is proposed to be removed. Staff have absolutely no problem with that. It is a much later addition, and I would say its construction is generally, or current condition is quite poor. And of course, construction of a new two-car garage approximately in the same footprint. The siting of the property is a little bit tight, given how I guess far back into the corner overall the house is, and we'll see that on the site plan in just a second. I will get to those drawings. And so there isn't a lot of room for shifting additions, because we do want to keep them to the side as much as possible. And this is a corner lot with the vast majority of its yard space kind of fronting along the corner, creating an open space along 2nd Street and Lakeshore Road East. So the new proposed garage would be approximately the same footprint as the existing, clad in stucco to match the existing residence. A great improvement will be that garage doors will be a single car width each. Right now, there's just a large double car metal garage door, and the roof will be a low slope shed roof. The next addition proposed is the removal of that one-story rear addition that was located behind the garage and construction of a new two-story addition, again, approximately to the same footprint due to the tight site constraints here. And again, it will be clad in stucco to match the existing residence with that false half timbering pattern. The windows will be wood casements to match the ones that are being put into the main portion of the existing house. And the roof line will match the existing in height, but it is set back from the front elevation that faces Lakeshore Road East, and that's due to the siting of the garage, which kind of comes forward in front of that. Next slide, please. And then the second addition, I noted earlier that the entrance enclosure facing Lakeshore Road will be removed. The addition here is the construction of the new principal entrance to the house, and so that will create a focal point so that you actually know where to enter the building now. It will be on the Lakeshore Road East elevation, which, while it's not the street address, it, I would say, is the primary elevation. That's where the driveway access is. So it gives some clarity about where to access the historic residence, and it will include a glass enclosed vestibule, wood doors, and picket style railings on top of the flat roof. And so I've gone over these additions. Now we're going to look at the drawings, which of course are in your agenda packages as well. Next slide, please. And so here's our site plan. And as I mentioned, the site constraints are fairly tight as the existing building is located, very close to that southeast corner of the property. That creates this open space along the intersection of 2nd Street and Lakeshore Road. And we did want to maintain that, and I believe the owners do as well, as that is, I'd say, a feature of the Heritage Conservation District overall, as well as this property. And so they are trying to work within the existing footprints as much as possible with the new additions. Next slide, please. And so what I really appreciate about the application package is that the applicant has provided both the existing elevation as well as the proposed. And so you can see again here the replacement of the carport with a new garage, and you can see the two-story addition that comes behind that garage, as well as the new principal entrance. And so this is the north elevation that faces Lakeshore Road East. Next slide, please. Coming around to the east side, this is a side that is actually very tight to the neighboring property owners. And I would say that this is actually quite an improvement, especially in terms of privacy, given that the 2nd story windows that are on the existing east elevation are being removed. New windows will be on the 1st story, so there are no overlooks into the neighboring property yard. And I'd say that what's being accomplished by the 2nd story addition and the new carport here is really trying to tie together the historic residence into a more cohesive unit by removing some of the hodgepodge additions that were made throughout its lifespan. Next slide, please. This is the south elevation, so this is the rear of the building. Again, this is facing the rear property line, which is bordered by a fence and quite a few trees. And I think here is where you really notice the most significant changes, as you can really see the extent of the two-story addition. But again, it really attempts to unify the existing character of the historic house and to create more usable space for the property owners while, again, putting this addition in the most appropriate location for it, as this will not be within the public realm. Next slide, please. And this is the west elevation. So this is the frontage that faces onto 2nd Street. You can see this is where we've got some changes to the false half timbering to kind of provide that more cohesive and regulated pattern of the Tudor Revival style, removal of several of the modern entrances, doors and windows that were later introductions. And you can see the side profile of the new principal entrance that opens onto Lakeshore Road East. Next slide, please. So we also have a rendering provided, and so this is the new proposed 93 2nd Street that has a much more unified character. It cleans up a number of the additions and I'd say landscaping that currently exist on the building, and I think will really make the property into a landmark within the 1st and 2nd Street Heritage Conservation District. Next slide, please. We, of course, have provided the heritage assessment according to the 1st and 2nd Street Heritage Conservation District guidelines. We fully support the alterations, as they are not removing historic fabric from the building, and in fact support the character of the property and the overall district. The addition at the rear is quite appropriate. It is subordinate to the original historic house, and the scale and massing do not overwhelm it. They're very much in keeping with the style. And the garage itself, again, being located on the same footprint as the existing carport, I would say is an improvement to the existing conditions, as the carport itself is not particularly attractive in its aesthetic design. Next slide, please. And so the staff recommendation is to approve the heritage permit application. Again, this is just a standard clause about the windows, doors, trim, and cladding material, paint colors coming into staff. We do fully expect the paint color theme as existing to be maintained, although we do get all of those final details in prior to construction, just to assure us that all of the materials and specs are appropriate. And of course, the heritage permit will be valid for 2 years, and we hope that the property owners are able to complete the work within that time. I am available for any questions, and I do believe that the project architect is available as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Super, thank you, Sue. As you note, probably if anyone was asked about the current house, they would note the mock Tudor or Tudor Revival finish, and retaining that finish in the new house kind of means that it is easier for it to continue to fit into that community. So it's nice to see that. I noticed there was a minor variation required, and I think you say in your report that that has in fact been approved by the Committee of Adjustment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe the variances have been approved, and they were really about legalizing existing setbacks. Again, it's due to that tight siting of the building towards the southeast corner of the lot.
Good, super. Right, does anyone have any questions to ask of Sue? No. Jason? Nope, okay, good, thank you very much. And as you note, we have 2 virtual delegations, I think, or 2 people noted to delegate. Madam Secretary, are they available?
I promoted Alexander Temple. If he wants to speak in regards to this matter.
I'm sorry?
He needs to unmute himself.
Okay, I'm not seeing him yet. Is that Alan Ariello or Alec Temporale? Which one?
Yeah, Alec.
Okay. Alex, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Alex, we can hear you. We don't see you, but that's all right as long as we can hear you. I noticed that you were indicating that you would be happy to answer any questions rather than to make another presentation. Anyway, whatever you want to share with us, please go ahead.
No, I'm here simply to answer any questions, and I think Susan has done an excellent job in reviewing the project, and I really have nothing to add.
Good. Okay, are there any questions of Mr. Temporale? No, good, good. Well, thank you for your attendance. You don't have to go away. You can stay on, and I'm sure if we need anything further from you, we'll ask. Thank you for being here. Okay, so I don't see anyone in the council chamber who wishes to speak to this, and we have no other registered electronic delegations, so we're now confined to the board. Any comments that any member of the board would like to make on this application? Nope. Well then, would somebody like to give me a motion? Brenda would like to give me a motion that would be to accept the staff recommendation. Okay, so is there any further discussion on that motion? Okay, is anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 4.2, and that's 31 First Street. And that's Carolyn this time. And thank you, Sue. I think you've gone away now, but anyway, thank you for your at least coming on virtually today. Thank you.
I will be available for later items, Mr. Chair, as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll just wait for 31 First Street presentation to come up. So here is the property. Located on the east side of First Street, just north of Lake Ontario. It's located within the 1st and 2nd Street Heritage Conservation District. It contains a circa 1855 two-story frame house known as the William Robertson House. Similar to 93 2nd Street, this house has also undergone quite a few changes over the years since it was originally built in the mid-19th century. It is a contributing property in the Heritage Conservation District. It includes some non-historic rear wings to the original front house at the front. The application is to remove an existing non-historic rear deck and to construct a new enclosed porch in the same location, which is to the rear of the Heritage House. And no minor variances are required for this. I'll take you through some photos. This is a photo from the front of the property looking down the south side yard. This is the only impact that the new proposed addition would have on the streetscape. So that's why we're showing this angle here. So just behind the heritage structure that you see here would be a brick chimney that you would be able to see as part of the porch. And now we're coming down that same side yard, but now looking towards the street from the back. So to the right, you see the deck that would be removed. And this is a full picture of the rear yard. So the historic house is the portion that is the farthest away, the two-story original house. And then to the right is later additions that were added on. To the left, where the existing deck is, that is what the portion that's to be replaced with a new enclosed sunroom, or sorry, screened-in porch, I should say. The only impact it's going to have in terms of the heritage building is it will be attached to the first story of that original two-story portion. But as you can see there are contemporary French doors that have been added. The original heritage attributes are all on the second floor with the historic windows. Those won't be impacted as the new porch is a one-story flat roof structure. So here's a site plan to the right showing a little bit more zoomed in. This is a new screened porch. Again, it's going to be tucked into the L shape of the existing house, attached to the original heritage structure to the west, which is the bottom there, and to the north would be attached to the later additions. Here's a view from the front. Again, no real impacts except for the brick chimney of the porch would be jutting out just a little bit, so you would see it from the street. And here is the view from the south. So this is the flat structure that's to be attached to the rear with a red brick chimney to match the red brick chimneys that are existing on the house. The porch is to have wood columns and railings with screens obviously filling in the window openings, as well as 2 screen doors. The bottom portion is to be clad in stone to match as close as possible to the lake stone foundation on the Heritage House. Coming around the back is difficult to see from this view, but there are the 2 doors, 2 screen doors exiting the back of the porch, because that middle section where the stone is, that will actually be protruding a little bit to allow for those 2 entrances. So again, wood columns, railings, steps coming down, and then you can see it attaches to the later additions of the Heritage House to the right. This is the view from the north, no impacts on this elevation. So in terms of our assessment with the 1st and 2nd Street District Plan, we looked at the scale and height, which we find is compatible with the house in the district. Again, the structure is lower in height than the heritage structure. It's tucked in behind the historic building, so it's not really that visible from the street, and is a really nice rear yard amenity space for the building and for the homeowners. In terms of the aesthetic, it is traditional. The materials are considered to be compatible. It is obviously distinguishable from the Heritage House because it is a screened-in porch, but you've got those traditional materials like wood columns, railings, etc. And there are no direct impacts to heritage attributes, as the roof line of it was kept below the historic windows on the 2nd floor of the Heritage House. So the staff recommendation is that the application be approved, again, just subject to their standard clause that final details on all of these elements be submitted to staff for final approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good. Thank you, Carolyn. I noticed this open railing. I guess the screening, though, will go all the way behind that railing, too.
I think that is the idea, Mr. Chair.
It looked like panels on the drawing. I couldn't see it below, but I presume the screening would go behind the railing.
I believe so. Through you, Mr. Chair, I should have mentioned, we do also have the designer here for the application, so they may be able to speak to those details a little bit more better.
Okay, good, thank you. Right, any questions of Carolyn? Yes, Bob?
I'm a little bit concerned about the chimney and where it exits and whether or not that's going to cause problems of the smoke impacting the windows that are very close and the portion that is overhanging on the one side. Most chimneys should be above the roof line of the house, and I would be very concerned that there'll be emission problems that the house will face.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Bob, and I can have the designer confirm this as well, but I believe it's a gas insert, so I don't think you'd be dealing with any of the smoke coming up from the top. If it was a wood fireplace, the chimney would have to be substantially higher, I believe.
I had the same concern, Bob, because if it was a wood-fired stove, that chimney would have to be a lot higher because it's too close to an adjacent structure. But I've been told that it will be a gas insert, and if it weren't to be a gas insert, I guess the building department would deal with that issue. Correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay. Any other questions of Carolyn? Now, you said that the designer was perhaps here and could answer any questions. Is that so? Okay. If you would like to step up to the podium and give your name, rank, and serial number for the benefit of the secretary, and then share with us your information.
My name is Travis Hegeman. I'm from Hegeman Homes and Interiors, Inc., and I'm the designer for this project on 31 First Street. Just want to say thank you to Carolyn for the review of this project and to confirm 2 of the items that were brought to the attention. The fireplace will be a gas insert, and it was designed to be a contributing feature of the chimney to the house, and we've taken into consideration that The clients wanted a gas fireplace, so we were able to keep the height down and to confirm for everything for the emissions that are standard for a gas insert fireplace. As for the screened portion of the porch, the screen will come down on the outside of the railing, but we're keeping the railing to, again, keep the aesthetic feature of the screened-in porch.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Brenda?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, there was mention of using lake stone at the base of the porch?
So we can't use lake stone anymore because it's not available. So it's using a similar product that has the contributing features of lake stone.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Nope. Super. Thank you very much indeed. And I don't see anyone else, and I have nobody else registered, so it'll be now confined to the board. Any discussion? Any comments? Nope. Good. Would somebody then like to give me a motion? George? And the motion would be to approve the staff recommendation. Thank you very much. George has made the motion to approve the staff recommendation. Is there any further discussion of that motion? Is there anyone opposed to that motion? Good. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. So moving on now to our confidential item, which was distributed with our package, and I'm sure all of you have had a chance to read it. As I indicated earlier, if anyone wishes to speak to this or to discuss this matter, we would have to move in camera. If that's not the case, and if in fact everyone is quietly pleased to read the report, if I can go that far, then we have the recommendation would be that the nominee for the Ontario Heritage Trust Awards as set out in Confidential Appendix A be endorsed. So if everyone is happy with that, would somebody give me that motion? I see, Councillor Gittings, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. If no one has any questions of staff, I'd be happy to move the endorsement. I love reading items such as this that are brought forward by staff. A wonderful and worthy nomination. It reminds me of how fortunate we are to have people such as this working on heritage matters in our community.
Good, super, super. Okay, so Councillor Gittings has made the motion. Is there any further discussion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. Right, so the next item on the agenda is information items, 6.1 Heritage Conservation District Update. And I think that's remote Sue again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff have been working very diligently with the volunteers from the Lakeside Residents Association who have put in a huge amount of time in reviewing the draft district plan that we released in May, and I'm very pleased that we are so close to releasing the next draft, I can almost taste it, and that is necessary as we are very much hoping to have the formal public meeting that is required by the Ontario Heritage Act in front of Planning and Development Council on October the 15th. And so that will be confirmed by the end of this week, as we are required to send notice to all property owners within the district to give them at least 20 days notice of the meeting. And of course, we want to have the draft plan available online for everybody to review. And so that is what we are currently working towards. And I am very hopeful that we will meet that deadline for the public meeting. And then I will be very happy to hear the comments from the public as we move forward with the process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good. Super, thank you. And then the next information item is the designation project update.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We had no designations on the agenda today, but we'll have more coming up at the next October meeting, and a number of them going to the September 24th council meeting as well. The other update, which all of you know by now, is that we are losing Elaine, one of our heritage researchers on the project. And so this doesn't change our workload. Obviously, we're going to keep moving forward. It will change some of our timing on some things. Again, because the province has given those additional 2 years to get to deal with the listed properties before they're removed. That is helpful because some of this will bleed obviously into 2025, maybe a little bit farther. But we've been very happy to have Elaine on this project as long as she has been. She's contributed greatly to the project with all of her amazing research skills. So she'll be leaving us, I think October 1st is her last day. And she's here today too to say hello. But yeah, in terms of the project itself, we'll keep moving forward, Kristen and myself for now. And again, like I said, we'll keep doing those designations into 2025 as long as we need to get it done.
Good, super, thank you. I'll get to Elaine in a minute. And then the delegated heritage permits, there were, I think, 3 or 4. Information is in your agenda, and as usual, if you have any questions about that, ask staff after the meeting. So if I can have a motion, please, from somebody. I think Bob wants to give me the motion to receive the information items. So Bob has moved that we receive the information items. If there's no further discussion on that motion, anyone opposed to the motion is carried. So the date and time of our next meeting is Tuesday, October the 29th, 2024, in the council chamber at 9:30. But before I ask for a motion to adjourn, there's a couple of things I need to note today. One is, as Carolyn told us, Elaine has decided that sort of gig working is not for her anymore, and she wants to have permanent, regular employment, and she's going to work for the City of Toronto in a research capacity in their heritage department. And we know she'll bring to them a huge amount of skill and background and information, which she has shared with us for the last, 5, 6, 7 years. And we've really, really appreciated, especially on this most recent project, the depth and interest of the reports that have been produced with respect to the designation of heritage properties. So we're really going to miss Elaine. I would say, though, if you can jump on the GO train or whatever around Christmas time, you'd be very happy to see you at the Queen's Head when we have our Christmas lunch. So it'd be lovely to see you then. And the second kind of sad, happy note is with respect to Brenda, because this is Brenda's last meeting with us today. She's going off to take a lead position on a project very dear to her heart. Maybe I could ask her to explain it to us what it is, because why don't you do that, Brenda? Just tell us where it is you're going.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to be the chair of the Alumni Initiative for Women at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto. And our main project is the rebuild of a new women's residence. So very related to what I've been doing with you the last 5 years, but it's an important project. It's the last women's residence on campus, and we're interested in renewing it and having ongoing support. So part of what I'll be doing is also fundraising.
Yes, it sounded to me such an exciting project, and clearly you can't do two things because you're going to be focused 100% on that. So we will really miss Brenda, and I think we all thank her and Elaine, and we will miss them both. But thank you so much for your time that you've given and the quality of the output of this committee, which has benefited so much from your input. Okay, thank you very much. So I would thank everybody for the gift of their time again today, and especially for our departing members. Would somebody now like to give me a motion? Kerry is giving me a motion to adjourn. No one's opposed to that, so the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.